All right, part four, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. We're on part four already. And if you haven't seen the first three parts, you're missing some great stuff. We went through this whole um, process of getting a beautiful line and wash painting completed. So we're working with the line and wash technique. This is a very popular technique. A lot of artists use this technique. Some artists might particularly work in this style only. Um, but this is a beautiful technique. It's fantastic. You get some beautiful, very vibrant looking watercolors. You get some really powerful shadowing with the ink and wash, line and wash technique. So let's get started here. We're going to look at our palette first. So if you needed just a quick refresher from part one, two, and three, just real simply, the first part we did a light pencil drawing of the scene. Second part we did the ink, the line portion with the Sumi ink and our ink pens. And the third part we did our sky wash, which was with lots of water, and we mixed our colors. We used mostly the blues, which would be cerulean, cobalt, French ultramarine. And then in those blues we mixed in some burnt sienna and raw sienna to give it a little warmer feel to it. So we got our sky color in. Before we did our sky color though, which was incredibly important, so that's why I always say go back and check out the other parts, especially part two and part three. We discussed how you have to absolutely let this ink dry when you do the ink portion, the line work with the ink. You have to let that completely 100% dry before you go back and start adding your watercolor washes. Otherwise it can run and just make a mess of things completely. So if that's one thing you really remember in this process of doing the line and wash work, is always let your ink completely dry 100% before you go in and do your washes. And then you'll be in great shape. So no matter what subject matter you're doing, this style lends itself well to landscape type paintings, streetscapes. So those are two really beautiful type paintings that look great with line and wash. All right, so now let's get back right into things. So I let this dry, the sky wash. So the last part three, we did the sky wash. Looks great, tons of water. What we did here is we did the sky wash and now we let that dry. So now it's dry, but the paper still bubbled a little bit. So it's not 100% dry, but it's dry enough that by touch, so I touch it and I say, okay, yeah, that's pretty dry. I can go in and start working on this, and it's not going to have any kind of crazy looking balloons, blossoms, and bleeds of watercolor going all over the place, because that's what happens if you don't let your washes dry in between. So always be aware of that. That's a huge thing with watercolor, is timing your washes, making sure you're not doing sections next to a section you just did, because then the water can just flow out into your area you just completed. So that can be really disastrous results when we're not letting our watercolor washes dry. So that's why I say for part three, we did the sky wash, and we let the sky wash now pretty much dry about 90% of the way. The paper's still a little bit buckled, but it is very dry. So let's get back in, and we're going to use these same colors. I left them right in my palette. So you can see I left all the sky colors right in the palette, and then we're just going to do some colors there, and then we'll start introducing some alizarin crimson, some raw sienna, and we'll start just to add a couple of those kind of notes to the painting. But more or less, that's a grayish kind of color we're going to use there in this portion. So I'm looking at my painting, and the painting in the book I'm looking at. And so here we're going to do the same thing. We're sort of so I'm going to use, here I added a little bit of burnt umber to the alizarin crimson. And again, we try to add the same colors you're using. I always say this, try to add the same colors you're using throughout your painting. That's why I'm saving these sky colors, because I'm going to try to mix some of these sky colors into other washes that we're doing. So I think everywhere I go in and do a wash, I'm going to add some of this sky color into those areas. And then we'll go with some burnt umber and a little bit. The only issue I have here is some blue and burnt umber. A little bit of burnt sienna. Okay, then we have a nice roof. That could be a little darker. Cobalt blue and burnt umber. French ultramarine. So maybe we'll add a little more. I'm going to introduce a little bit of mineral violet. So now that I put that mineral violet, I'm going to try to go around and kind of add it to everything else so that it doesn't look. So mineral violet with a little bit of cobalt, blue for some shadowing. That's the shadow there. And okay, now we're going to get into some. Let's see now. Now this is where I didn't prepare correctly. I should have had light red fixed on my, added onto my palette. So usually I try to add the colors. Actually, I have some right here close by. Let me take a look. And I do. So we'll get some light red. Okay, so now we have some light red. And with the light red, a little bit of burnt umber. So burnt umber, burnt sienna, and light red, and a little bit of blue. This way we can get some nice variations in color. And now we're going to go in with some more burnt umber and some Payne's gray. And some burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of light red. A little bit of alizarin crimson. And a little more light red, just for the chimney pots. And let's see what else we have here. Okay, so now we're burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. We'll try to get in these. So here we're doing that wall over here. This wall is sort of on an angle, but it's there. Then we can put in a nice roof with the warmer colors. And we'll maybe add in some. That was the alizarin crimson over here. Again, we're mixing the colors, trying to get a lot of variation in the colors here versus just like using one color. Let's mix it. Let's mix all the colors. But I'm using the same colors pretty much around here and there. And again, burnt sienna, light red. Then we're going to go in with some shading. So that's a mineral violet and French ultramarine blue. And we'll just save this over here on this side of the palette for our shadowing. Shadowing can be darker over here. Okay, let's zip along here. Now we're going to go with some more light red and alizarin crimson. Shadowing color. Let's do that. Make it a little wavy. Again, sorry about the coughing here. Still working on getting better. And then I charged that purple color with a little bit of warmer tones just to make a little variation in it. And again, we're going to work with those warmer colors. The burnt siennas, burnt umbers, alizarin crimsons, and just... There we go. And over here, a little cooler. That's a warm color. And then here we have a just alizarin crimson, really. All right, we're probably gonna have to go with another part because I'm trying to rush here to get this done in the next part, but let's not rush it too much. Sometimes if we go too fast, then that can be a problem too, where we start to make mistakes and have issues with our painting. So let's take a break. Again, take breaks, lots of breaks when you're painting. That's why also is a great way to practice the taking breaks is just do the parts as you know, as we make our videos here and we do our YouTube videos and we do them, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3, and etc. Let's kind of work that way too. Take breaks. So if you do part 1, maybe take a break for an hour, or even maybe break it out into days. If you don't have the time, I know some of you are very extremely busy. You can't take the time out to do a lot of work at one time. So maybe we can do part 1 on one day, part 2 another day, part 3 another. So you can kind of break it up, and it doesn't hurt anything because you can just let everything dry on your paper and come back to it again. But there is a flow to it. If you can do it in one day, your mind is in the same flow of things. So it is a little easier if you can do these in like one day, all the different parts in one day. But if you have to break it up into parts over a series of days, that's fine too. It's all up to you. But I know you're smart enough to figure it out how to do it. And in any case, let's come back. We'll do one last part and finish up.